All right, guys, welcome back to Mike Force Podcast. It's been a while, and I appreciate you guys' patience. Greg Lapin filled the gap. That's what he said. I'm super stoked about being back and picking up the pieces one step at a time. And I decided to name this episode Picking Up the Pieces because that's what it is. I did a whole bunch of podcasts, a few podcasts, mostly on Cleared Hots podcast with Andy Stumpf, a good friend of mine, about the situation that I went through and then coming full circle and picking up the pieces. And received a whole bunch of positive feedback from my experience in starting over and the affirmation that I needed to start from scratch and do it all over again. So that's what I'm here doing. You know, a lot of people have reached out to me and expressed their own experiences of going through shit. And I think that's just a common theme across the human experience. You know, when I teach resilience or mindset, what I try to do is articulate to people, they often think because it's hitting them maybe figuratively or literally like a baseball bat in the back of the head, that things are the worst they've ever been. And I try to let them know, like, hey, that's life, man. You're not special. And sometimes we want to feel like we're special, and that's usually positive. But when things are bad, we cling on to that like a persona, like a signal to the world around us, and that attention feels just as good. It's that victim mentality that, hey man, like, look at me, woe is me. I refuse to live that way. I don't want to ever be recognized or remembered or associated with trauma that happened in my life, because guess what? I'm not special. A lot of the things that I was going through, even thinking it was the worst case scenario, the way I got through it was people's perspective and, hey man, it's not so bad. Personal friends of mine even sharing in their own vulnerability, their own experiences, dealing with whatever it was, relationship-wise, finance-wise, business-wise, and that helped a lot. And I think that's the perspective that we need when we're dealing with trying to pick up the pieces. Like, you're not special. Trauma is common to all. It's often like we talk about in preparedness, where we say, hey, disaster, catastrophe is an equal opportunist. It loves to hand everybody their ass the same. And so when you feel like, because of your own arrogance, you're somehow special or lucky even, and then things do happen, you're surprised. Well, here's just some preemptive thinking. Don't be surprised. Because the same things that happened to me might happen to you. I never would have thought in a million years, based on some of the trials and tribulations I've gotten over the last few years, that that would be the outcome. But shit happens. And I appreciate all the support and feedback, but I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm used to picking up pieces, and I've always been resilient in my life. That might have started with hardship as a young man or growing up, or the way my dad and mom raised me. I don't know what it is. I remember being 17 years old in basic training and being a squad leader that was designated in a leadership position and chewing out 20-something-year-olds that I expected to man up or sack up, and they were just crybabies because they missed their girlfriend or they thought they had made a wrong decision and joined the Army. I'm like, suck it up, buttercup. It's too late now. Like, now's the time not to think about the regrets you have in signing up, because you're here. And if you don't like it, you better tell somebody, because you're going to have a very miserable existence, at least in this 15 weeks at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I remember thinking, like, that's weird. Like, I figured as a 17-year-old, as a young man, that I would never be in a position telling grown men that they needed to suck it up or stop crying or it's going to be okay, even offering them empathy. But now I get that full circle. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the podcast. Don't check out on me. Don't do that to me. Stick around. Understand that this podcast is only sponsored by myself and the companies and partners that we work with. We're working really hard with a team to provide valuable content for the application. Make sure you download the Fieldcraft Survival app and either do a monthly or annual subscription where you could save more. Again, it's everything from canning and jarring, situational awareness to personal defense. And we just added a new show with me and Greg Lapin called Team Room. You guys can check out the link down below. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and back to the podcast. You know, a lot of the grifters that talk shit about me on social media, people have always asked me, like, man, I hope you're doing okay, man. Like, I saw all the hate that you're getting. And I'll say it again. When you're actually in real life, not virtually, fighting for your life, like the custody of your kids, the health and wellness of your everyday life, second to second, moment to moment, you give two craps about a stranger's opinion on Twitter. You just don't. A stranger's YouTube video. You don't care. And I know a lot of people say that and they actually do care. I really don't and never really have. You know, growing up in the military, when I was designated in an informal leadership position as somebody who was kind of like taking charge of shit, I was always the one that was kind of singled out because it's like, who does this guy think he is? I'm nobody special. I just have confidence in my abilities to lead or plan or do the thing. And that attracted hate from people who typically were insecure from what was going on. And whether it's a scarce mindset, the scarcity of a market, whatever the incentive is for people to do that, I feel bad for people like that. Because my perspective is often the perspective of many who are in a position of influence. If you want to play the long game and your whole entire objective is to grift, is to single somebody out and talk about their weaknesses and their vulnerabilities in anything, politically, socially, you're not going to survive. It's not going to lend itself likely in your favor. And I see that all the time all over social media because I've been in the game for 10 years solid. And I've had the endurance to overcome and conquer a lot of things that would knock you out of the game. Where people didn't want me to speak up because I was criticizing police officers from Uvalde. I was being targeted by the FBI. I was being called a stolen valor or a fake whatever by anybody. And I thought to myself, like, man, I think that the people closest to me in my own inner circle, my own family, as long as they know, I'm okay with that. And then when my own personal situation in my own household got rocked, I started questioning myself. But I knew through the combination of prayer, my tribe, those closest to me, and picking up the pieces one piece at a time, I was going to get through it. Because if you're going through something difficult, you should always remember and have the mindset that you're playing the long game, my friend. You're playing the long game. I talked about it in relationship to Veterans Day. A lot of veterans have problem with Veterans Day. They don't vocalize it or say it, so I'll speak for you. Because you're like, wait, I don't feel like I sacrificed anything by serving because I knew what I was getting myself into. And so they don't like to accept the recognition of the thanks for their service. And I get that. But when you get so comfortable and complacent in a role and job, you think that's the end, or that's the life that you're going to live. And then before you know it, it's over, and then you're moving on to another journey. You're like, oh my God, I thought I was going to retire after the age of 37, because that's 20 years when I went in the military at the age of 17. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in my 40s and I still feel like I got a lot of energy. Trump, when he gets inaugurated, is going to be 80. And so I'm going, oh, so this isn't the short game. This is the long game. And so to have a mindset that something derails you and that's not a part of the process is the wrong mindset, because it is part of the process. I don't care if your trial or tribulation is a criminal case. It's the stage 2, stage 4 cancer diagnosis. It's the catastrophe that rips through your hometown, that affects and impacts your family, an accident that shakes the family. I don't care what it is. It is a common to all human experience that you better get used to. And all my grifters, all my shit talkers, who I see some of those going through self-perpetuating drama and cycles themselves, because that's what it always ends up to be. Like when you support somebody who's talking shit about somebody else, you are waiting for their own demise so you could say, that's what you get. And it's like, who wants to be part of that social experiment? That human experiment? I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to see somebody's life decline on social media and them fall from grace and then everybody laughing at them and destroying them. And then something catastrophic happens that really means something in somebody's life, like suicide, depression, anxiety, breaking apart of family. I don't want any of that for anybody. And so I distance that as far away from me as humanly possible. And my recommendation to you, and you could pick up what I'm laying down, or you could flush it, you should do the same. Because it's only a matter of time that if you don't have your shit together, and even if you do, you're going to face the trial and tribulation, and you're going to be confronted with the biggest challenge you've ever faced. And if you've built a bag full of non-empathetic resistance to the world, you've isolated yourself, you've talked shit and grifted everybody, you've burnt every bridge that you've built, then you're not going to be resilient and you're going to fail. And you're not going to make it. You're not going to pick up any pieces. In fact, I would venture to guess somebody else is going to be picking up your pieces. So you got to be strong. You got to be positive. You got to clean up your act. Restore the hierarchy of things that you thought were important. And sure, I certainly shuffled the deck, but I've always had a strong base. You know, I don't want to sit here and virtue signal that I had it all figured out and it was easy for me. But thank God I had the right group of men around me to support me through this. And women. There were some women who came out of the woodwork to support me. Thank God I had a strong family structure, and my mom and stepdad were there for me, helping me nearly hand in hand. I mean, helping me get out of bed. Thank God I had good kids, where the Department of Child and Family Services went to interview my 5-year-old son and said to him, "What's the best part of mommy?" And my son said, "Daddy." That was his answer, "Daddy." Because my kids love their father, and I've been a good father. And so I was able to, just by having a good core fundamental building of tribe, of family, of friends, get through it. And to me, that was the worst case scenario. The prospect of losing your kids is worst case scenario. And I was able to get through it. You, if you don't have it, need to start building the base now. Building that foundation now. Everything from if you're fat, unhealthy, depressed, anxious, you need to start turning that stuff around now. I mean, I got tools and tactics for you, but the first realization and step in the right direction is you being honest and truthful with yourself. Because if you don't build that base now and shit does hit the fan, you have nothing to help you pick up the pieces. And good luck with that. I want to thank everybody who helped me pick up the pieces, who supported me, the hundreds, if not thousands of people who shared their own experiences in dealing with stuff that was similar, who don't have a big influencing social media account, who are friends of mine, who I was actually close to, who came out of the woodwork and were like, hey man, what you're going through, I'm going through right now. I mean, guys like down the road who were contacting me going, I can't believe it's happening to you. It's actually happening to me. If it wasn't for your support, if it wasn't for all the things that you guys were doing for us at my company Fieldcraft, for me personally, even here on Mike Force as a channel, I wouldn't be motivated to get back to it. And I am. Yeah, it's hard. It's not easy, but that's just life. Get over it. Get over yourself and thinking anything other than that. And so here I am, and I want to get you guys' feedback on the direction of the Mike Force podcast. I love interviewing people. I used to do a whole bunch of singleton episodes on Mike Force, even things like this. One of my favorite episodes is Dads Are Rad, or Being a Dad is Rad, or something like that, talking about fatherhood. If you guys like this show and this format, and I see guys like Dan Bongino and Shapiro and guys that do daily shows, I like a lot of that. I don't want to just be political. I want to focus on preparedness, on mindset, on resilience, on the things that I'm passionate about. And part of that is interviewing people who, you know, when you interview them, you get that experience from them vicariously living through their experience. And I also think that's important. So maybe the combination of that. If you think I should stick with Mike Force, we even talked about potentially transitioning it into Free Range American as a podcast for a broader audience. Give me your feedback in the comments and let me know how you feel, man. I appreciate you guys. Check out our channels. I don't anticipate ever taking a corporate sponsorship from anybody except for family and friends. Then that's how I'll keep it. I want to stay independent. I don't want to be sponsored by BlackRock. I don't want to be like the legacy media. And I'm doing this honestly because I love it and I love you guys. Till next time. Peace out.